Last month, I did not have enough money to pay for my tax, and I had to make the choice if I'm going to either pay my tax on time, but then that meant I wouldn't have enough money to buy food and pay for petrol. I would obviously cover the basics of my expenses, but I decided not to pay my tax, and then within a few days of that month, my interest was so high, and then I luckily got a website to design and I managed to pay it. But I was shocked at how high it was, just the interest. So now I'm thinking to myself, should I be paying myself such a large salary? But how do I work it? Because I don't know what to do. I don't know where to put my money. As a small business owner, I need guidance with that.
Okay, well, so what have you thought about doing?
So obviously I did consider thinking, how can I cut my tax down to as minimum as possible? But then at the same time, I want to run my business with integrity. I want to make sure I'm ticking all the boxes, I'm doing what's right, and I personally am a big supporter in paying my tax, and I want to honor it. But it just becomes really challenging when I feel the tax is so high, and then I don't have enough for my daily living costs. So as much as I try to get more clients in, that takes time. So there is this I'm in limbo, and it's just affecting me month after month, and I'm aware that it's the end of the year now, so people aren't going to really look for marketing right now. They're going to more take it on in the new year. So and then it's Christmas. I have no idea what exactly to do.
So the problem and the challenge that you're dealing with is something we see on a regular and ongoing basis, and generally what we find people believe the solution is to cut costs. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't costs that need to be cut, but 95% of the time that is the wrong approach, because especially when you're starting up, there's a limited amount of costs in your business already. So if you're going to start cutting costs, how much are you going to save until you get to literally you're beyond the bare bone? So the problem generally always comes back to the same thing, is that you have to move the top line on. But we see it time and time again that people start focusing in the wrong areas. They start looking at their cost line, they start looking at the taxes that they should be paying. What can I do to reduce my taxes? Those are all the right business strategies that you need to have. But as a small business, what we start seeing is that people then start putting a whole raft of expenses into their business that don't belong in their business. And that sort of gets them through this month, and then the next month, and the next month. But there needs to be a very, very clear plan around, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what needs to change. And more often than not, what needs to change is that people need to grow their top line. And they'll end up focusing and putting time and energy and effort into cutting costs and potentially not paying their taxes, whether it be VAT, whether it be income tax, whether it be personal tax on their salary, and then the pressure starts to build. Because now, all of a sudden, they realize that they're behind on these taxes, and there's a debt sitting in the background, and it's with this scary guy called SARS, and what does it mean for me? So for us, that's a fundamental item that people need to look at. They need to understand and interrogate and say, do I have fat in my business? Are there costs that are higher than what they need to be? As opposed to just keep cutting costs and actually not deal with the issue at hand, which is that your top line needs to grow. Because yes, it's harder, but if you cut the costs, you'll get to a point that you're not going to move any further anyway.
Yeah.
And then you're going to try and address the top line. And then what we see 9 times out of 10 is that the base that you're now left with is so small and so weak, you actually can't grow the top line because you've cut everything out of the base. The foundation of your business is weak and it's unstable. And as you start landing the business, all of a sudden the foundation starts to shake and you find yourself dealing with another set of challenges.
Okay. So this morning I had met with a client who said to me that they might have a bunch of brands for me to market, and asked me the question, how many people are in your team? So currently it's just me, and then I have freelance people because I'm not paying a salary. So yes, I need to grow my business to increase my income. But what, again comes the question, all right, so how do you do that? Do I take on someone now because I need more hands on deck, basically, to help me get the work done? Because I am already stretched with my time. Especially being a single mom, I got my kids, I'm hustling, as a lot of people today really are doing. But, so, okay, my focus mustn't be on reducing my costs, but I need to increase my income. So how to go through that?
So again, something that I see so often is that people look at something that's happening right now in front of them and start changing and engineering around it. You invest against sustainable business, as opposed to you invest in something that's happening now in front of you. So I see this very often, especially in the manufacturing sector, where guys suddenly get an order and there's a part that needs to be outsourced, and they've done it 2 or 3 times, and now all of a sudden they want to be buying machines, they want to take on staff, they want to do all of this. You sit there and go and say, okay, guys, 2 or 3 orders doesn't necessarily mean 2 or 3 orders every single month.
Yeah.
Yes, you can maybe make more money, but rather embed it in your business. Get the ongoing recurring business happening in your business, and then you sit there and go, well guys, this is not something that's going away. Because very, very often people start focusing on what is that supplier getting to make out of this. I'm only making 10, 15, I can only mark it up 10, 15, 20% because I've got to pay the supplier, and otherwise I'll be uncompetitive. So they then start looking at that and saying, well, this could be an additional revenue stream. Then what happens? 6 months later, you're looking there, you've invested in people to do this work, and you go, well, I've brought on a website designer, but I haven't done a website in 4 months. Nobody's asked me for a website, but I've had to pay a salary for 4 months. Versus, okay, I outsourced the website. It's now 9 months later, and I've done 30 websites. This is clearly a revenue stream that is ongoing and recurring in my business, and it makes sense now for me to resource against it. And that's fundamental in any business. There are certain services and or requirements of the business that you will outsource. And yes, you could potentially make more money internally, but you've got to look at it and say, well, guys, what's the risk that it comes with? People, December, Jan, they're not going to work for you. When you're in a service business, the output's potentially not going to be there. Manufacturing is the same thing. You're looking at 10 months at best in a year that you're actually going to be productive the whole time. So when you're starting to put machines in and you're starting to put people in, can you pay them off? Can you get the return on 10 months in the year? And is the business that you need to pay for those costs there on a recurring basis? And sometimes, and probably more often than not, what we find is that people then land up in a break-even position.
Yeah.
So the cost to do it versus what you make on the revenue line is a factor of 0. Or it's the same 10 or 15% return that you got when you paid somebody else to do the work and you put a 10% markup on. So those are the kinds of things that you need to go through. And you've got to look when you're wanting to make an investment to say, is this an ongoing recurring income stream? Am I potentially in a bit of a bubble? Question, well, obviously often get asked is, well, how long? How long? 3 months, 6 months? How long does it go before you can make that decision? I think that's unique and different for every single business. Sometimes you'll very, very quickly pick up that this is the latest trend and it's going to run, and then you invest after 3 months.
Yes.
Other times you might be sitting 18 months into it, still going.
Yeah.
I don't believe this is the way or the investment that needs to be made. I'm quite comfortable with where we're at, and we'll continue to outsource it.